Good morning.
So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first Q&A session of our new sort of program format for these sessions. The way that we're going to do this is some of you emailed Bhante G some of your questions. So he's going to go through these after the meditation, of course. He's going to answer these questions that were emailed. And if we still have time left over, what you can do is you can either put your questions into the chat box, or you can raise your hand. There's a function where you can raise your hand and it'll put a little blue hand icon next to your name. And your name will go all the way to the top of the participant list. And then that'll be the order that I can unmute you and you can verbally ask Bhante Ji the question. Anyway, those two things are only if there's time left after he answers these emailed questions. So, good morning and thanks for being with us.
Okay, let us begin.
Oops. I have to open it. Which one is it? Delete this. There it is. Okay. And ready.
Ready?
Yeah.
Let us begin our metta recital. May all beings be happy and secure. May all beings have happy minds. Whatever living beings there may be, without exception, weak or strong, long, large, medium, short, subtle or gross, visible or invisible, living near or far, born or coming to birth, may all beings have happy minds. Let no one deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere. Neither from anger nor ill will should anyone wish harm to another. As a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so towards all living beings, one should cultivate a boundless heart. One should cultivate for all the world a heart of boundless loving friendliness, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hate or resentment, whether standing, walking, or sitting, lying down, or whenever awake. One should develop this mindfulness. This is called divinely dwelling here, not falling into erroneous views, but virtuous and endowed with vision, removing desires for sensual pleasures. One comes never again to birth in the womb. With this metta thought as usual, let us begin our practice of mindfulness. We breathe in and out, paying total attention to our breath. As we pay attention to the breath, we see breath flowing into our lungs through nostrils, and we feel the breath touching our nostrils. And then we notice the expansion of our chest area, abdominal area. As we breathe out, we notice the contraction of abdominal area, chest area, and leaving breath through the nostril. As we breathe out, again we notice the contraction of lower abdomen, contraction of chest area, and the breath leaving the body. So this is what is happening all the time. And then we notice also very brief pause between inhaling and exhaling. We notice the feeling, we feel the breath, we perceive the breath, we pay mindful attention, and then we are conscious of the breath. And they change as we breathe in and out. What we felt, perceived, thought, and paid attention and be conscious. When we are breathing in, will no longer be there. When we breathe out, this is happening all the time. And so quickly they happen as we breathe in and out. It is difficult to distinguish one from the other if we are not totally mindful. Then our breath becomes, as we keep paying attention to these changes, and since there is no any particular uh, thing to get excited, you feel the breath becoming relaxed, calm, and peaceful. The body becomes calm, relaxed, and peaceful. The mind becomes calm, relaxed, and peaceful. And then there arises the moment of letting go, because when they all are relaxed, nothing to get excited or attached to, and therefore we let them happen, and then we experience a degree of sense of letting go, and then we notice the mind also is releasing its tension, anger, and resentment, whatever we have, because they all are not permanent, they are changing, and it affects our hatred also, changes, and then arises a sense of feeling of metta more clearly. And then as we practice for the benefit of all living beings, including ourselves. Then arises a compassion, and then because of this development in our own mind, joy arises, because restlessness and worry fades away. Happiness arises when sleepiness and drowsiness fades away. Then concentration arises when doubt fades away. Thus we gain good concentration, and mind and body are calm and relaxed and peaceful. With that peaceful state, we breathe in and out, and then the mind becomes very sharp and clear, gain concentration. With the clear state of mind, a calm state of mind, we gain concentration. When joy, happiness arises, these are precursor to gaining concentration. When we gain concentration, we can reflect back to see how quickly things change within ourselves. Our body, feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness change very rapidly, that we cannot even notice or distinguish one from the other. They happen all together, they merge with each other, and they all flow together, they all are changing. And noticing this, we continue our practice for the rest of the meditation, silent meditation time. dukkhapatta ca niddukkha, bhayapatta ca nibbhaya, sokapatta ca nissoka, ontu sabbe pipanino. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear-struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. So too may all beings be. With this very wonderful, noble wish, let us continue our next section, which today, as Brian announced earlier, is answering questions. There are few questions. Thank you so much for the Dhamma talks. Each of them is like exceptional and marvelous banquet of wish you share with us. Thank you. In regard to feeling, you have discussed and explained some aspects of mindfulness today. There is reference to Mahasatipatthana Sutta. My question is the following and related to actual practice. During meditation, when to apply subduing, having restraint, greed, discontent with reference to the world. I understand world means our own mentality and materiality world. Does it mean that by example, before contemplating, focusing on the body in the body, such as the breath body in the body, one must first apply mindfulness on greed and discontent? Or does it mean that one is aware of greed and discontent, but apply mindfulness, such greed and such delusion, discontent is put aside like in a waiting room. As long as one does focus the body in the body, the feeling in the feelings, and so forth. I can only imagine numbers of questions you constantly receive and would understand that it is not adequate. In any case, I can only say once again, with all metta, thank you, Bhante, and thank all the people, and particularly Brian, for the daily priceless gift of Dhamma talks. Now, yes, in Satipatthana Sutta, Kaya Kayanupassi Virati, Atapi Sampadano Satima Vinaya Loke, Abhijja Domanasang. Here we see the, the reference you made. While practicing meditation, we cannot, before starting meditation, you don't have to spend long time to overcome covetousness and greed, covetousness and discontent. While meditating, you experience some moment of very peaceful, pleasant, and agreeable, and that time the mind tries to hold on to it and try to enjoy that peaceful, blissful moment. And since you have not trained the mind to achieve real peace, the temporary peace you achieve is temporary, it is impermanent. So you, in this practice, from the beginning to the end, entire discourse teaches us to be mindful of rising and falling. Samade dhammanupassiva kayasming verati. Why dhammanupassiva kayasming verati? In this case, you refer to the breath body or the world. Yes, it is referring to our world. This aggregates with the consciousness. So, and we every day we mention in our guided meditation instruction that when we gain a degree of concentration, we reflect back on our experiences to see how quickly they change. If the pleasant sensation arises, or covetousness, or greed, or discontentment arises, and at that time we apply this mindfulness. Here mindfulness is without greed, hatred or delusion. We impartially we pay attention to the rising and falling. And rising and falling in vipassana meditation is called panya or wisdom. Uh, so we say in the discourse, attikayoti vapanasa satipachupatita hoti. This body, in this case, we apply this to the feeling and consciousness and mind objects. And in this case, we take only one of them. When we understand one, other we can apply that understanding to other parts of the practice or other aspects of four foundations. Let us say the mind or the body, attikayo tu apana sati pachupatita hoti. This body exists for gaining yavadeva jnanamattaya patisatimattaya. This body exists for us to gain wisdom and mindfulness. Wisdom is the wisdom of seeing rising and falling constantly without any exception. When covetousness arises, it also rises and falls. When discontent arises, that also rises and falls. So, from the very beginning, we train the mind to be mindful of rising and falling, rising and falling, rising and falling. So, throughout the entire discourse, this is the passage repeated again and again. And therefore, we don't have to wait till the end of that section to notice rising and falling. From the very beginning, the very first moment we begin to sit, we set to meditate, from that moment we must notice rising and falling, rising and falling. And therefore, we don't get out of meditation to think of rising and falling. But in the meditation, we don't have to use any words or concept, but just pay total, undivided, I repeat these words, undivided attention. It is very easy for the meditator to get distracted from various things, sound, especially sound. And even when you hear a sound, if you really mindfully pay attention to the sound, that sound is changing. It really changes because it comes as waves, the sound waves. They come one after the other at a very rapid frequency. And because of the rapidity of the frequency, we don't normally notice them. But when we are mindful, we can notice the sound waves hitting our eardrums and and all the time it happens. What normally happens, we don't pay attention to the sound waves. They are appearing and disappearing. We are trying to interpret the sound. Who made the sound, how made the sound, why made the sound, and so forth. We get carried away with conceptual proliferation. We proliferate our concept. Therefore, it is not easy to subdue. It is not easy to subdue the covetousness and disappointment or discontent. So we have to understand that part, and then I try to. In fact, this question came from a person, uh, Stauros in Switzerland. Next question seems to have come from where? From Singapore. Next question is also after thanking. I have been enjoying your lessons on dependent origination and learning a lot more than if I were to read a book on it. Thank you so much. I would like to ask you a few questions about mentality, materiality, and consciousness. Attention, which is part of mentality, is to me like consciousness. But consciousness is supposed to be separate from mentality, materiality. So I do not understand how there can be attention without consciousness. Okay, that is one question. Surely, you remember me repeating when in the mentality group, contact, feeling, perception, thought, and attention are there. Surely attention can never exist without consciousness, and therefore consciousness definitely is in the attention. Contact has attention, feeling has attention, thoughts has attention, and what do you call, consciousness has contact has consciousness, feeling has consciousness, thought has consciousness, attention has consciousness, and consciousness is conscious of itself. So the consciousness cannot exist by itself. Consciousness needs the support of other mental factors for it to exist. Even in the mindfulness of the mind section in the four foundations of mindfulness, consciousness is not mentioned separately. Consciousness always either with greed or without greed, with hatred or without hatred, with delusion or without delusion, and so forth. There always are some mental content in the consciousness. These mental contents are called thought or volitions. They are wholesome, unwholesome, and neither wholesome nor unwholesome, and so on. They are there. They also turn out to be feelings. But the mental contents, some of them are wholesome, like generosity, compassion, and so forth. Others are unwholesome, like greed, hatred, and so on. So, consciousness is mentioned always together with mental content. Mentality, materiality do not exist without consciousness. I think this question uh, related to another question. Uh, I think you asked, I don't know whether I answered that part. Mm. That is when the Sariputra's simile. Um, There's mental materiality. Then, a second question is in meditation, I think I can perceive contact of thoughts, contact of sounds. It is always possible to see the coming together of sense organs, the sense object, and the consciousness that make up contact. I am not able to differentiate between sense contact and sense consciousness. Uh, I think, I don't know. Anyway, I mentioned in my earlier presentation that Venerable Sariputra's very famous simile.
Is this what you're looking for?
Yeah?
This one or this? The Sariputta simile.
Yeah. What is it? I hear from the gentleman who sent it from Singapore.
This one.
This one.
From Singapore. This is what you're looking for?
Yeah, but Venerable Sariputta simile,
Oh, that's this one.
he refers to Sariputta simile. Okay. This one. Okay. I would really appreciate if it is if you could explain Venerable Sariputta simile for consciousness and mentality, materiality. Mentality, contact, feeling, perception, thought, and attention is part of consciousness. How can consciousness exist simultaneously separate from mentality? Does bamboo stick example imply that they separately exist simultaneously? Thank you. Okay. Now, mentality, materiality, and consciousness mentality, materiality is on one side, consciousness is on the other side in this bamboo stick simile. Now, we must remember at the same time, this bamboo stick simile don't stand separately. They all, both of them are supporting from the top. On the top, both of them leaning against each other. Consciousness leads against mentality and materiality. Materiality and mentality leads against consciousness. So, consciousness you cannot separate. Consciousness is almost together with mentality, materiality. But in order to show that they cannot exist independently, the simile is given joining from the top. It is not simultaneously appearing separately, but simultaneously supporting each other supporting each other. And that is what is called mutually supportive, anyamanya pacha in Patisapada. Anyamanya means mutual from one another, each other. supporting each other. And therefore, you can say they exist simultaneously, not separately. Uh, Consciousness cannot exist mentality without mentality materiality. Mentality and materiality cannot exist without consciousness. That part is, I think, we have to understand. Uh, so, I think we have few more minutes.
There's,
That's all questions I have.
I have two other here.
Yeah.
There's two other here.
What are the other two?
You want me to read them?
Yeah.
Okay.
How can householder?
Yeah.
How can householder develop renunciation? How can I did not get it? And okay. How can householder develop renunciation on daily practical level? Uh, I think daily in practical level anybody can practice renunciation. If you try to renounce everything all of a sudden, it will never work. For instance, you are leaving everything, break all the bridges and shave your head, put on yellow robe and go to the monastery and stay there and give up everything. It does not work. It does not work even those who go to monastery. How it works is letting go of little bit at a time. Little bit at a time. Say, for instance, I give a very, very hypothetical example. Suppose you like ice cream. You like, I think everybody likes ice cream. And if you understand the danger of eating ice cream, children eat ice cream because particularly they don't understand, and they also need a lot of sugar for their growth, only for a short period. But as adult, if you keep eating ice cream, you will see what happens to you. You put on a lot of sugar into your body, and you can put on weight, and you can increase your hypertension. You become very active. Just try to, after eating ice cream, try to sleep. At night, you cannot sleep. If there is ice cream in the refrigerator and go to sleep, this is the very favorite ice cream with chocolates, what do you call, syrup and nuts, all kind of nuts and syrups, and the best kind of ice cream in the refrigerator. And you try to sleep. Can you sleep? No. You will slowly in the middle of the night, you tiptoe into the refrigerator and you become vegetarian. So, you eat that. Can you sleep? No. When you don't eat, can you sleep? No. And therefore, you must determine, I must let go of this ice cream. It has a flavor, it has asada, that's called asada, pleasure, enjoyment, but you don't see the danger. So we have to see asada, adinava. These two steps you have to follow. First you must, as an intelligent adult, understanding person, who are not trying to behave like little children, but as an adult, understanding person and matured, you bring up all your qualities to your consciousness and decide not to eat ice cream. You are drinking. Another example, you are drinking. You get a boosting. You may find all kind of benefits of drinking. But see the danger. You don't see the danger. It can build up cirrhosis and destroy your lung, and you will have all kind of sugar. You can develop diabetes. You will break up your family. You will have quarrels. You have no steady state of mind. So many dangers are there in drinking alcohol. But you like it. So you learn to let it go. You learn to let it go. Use all kind of method. AA program, meditation, associating with good friends and leaving that place and get involved in some activities and so forth. Do all sort of things to get rid of your habit of drinking, habit of putting a lot of sugar into your body. This is how we learn to renounce. This is renunciation. Give up. First we have to understand. Buddha went on saying, because I went on seeing the pleasure of sensual, enjoying sensual pleasures. I went on enjoying sensual pleasures. I did it all until I became obsessed. I know that. At the same time, I saw the danger. The danger. Asada adinava. And then comes Nissarana. Nissarana is letting go, renunciation. Nekkhamma Sankappa in Noble Eightfold Path. This step is the third step. First you know the flavor, enjoyment, and then you see the danger of that particular enjoyment, and then you can see you from your own this is what is called Pachattang Veditabo Vinyo. The noble, the wonderful thing in the Dhamma is that one must the wise person must realize by himself the truth of this experience. Pachattang Veditabo Vinyohi. The Buddha's teaching is to be realized by the wise individuals. So, if you become wise, if you see these two steps of anything you want to give up, you can give up. If you see that. The problem is we are so full of ignorance. Ignorance of because of our ignorance, we think, oh, renunciation is very difficult. It is only for special selected people. Friends, we all can be selected ones. We all can be selected. There is no one particular selected person, chosen person. In the Buddha's teaching, there is no chosen person. We all are chosen. Chosen by our greed, hatred, and delusion, or non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. These are the factors that choose us, and we choose them. So, this is a very good question. My reading was very slow, but I read slowly in order to understand, in order for me to understand the question. If he reads it very quickly, you will be pleased to hear him reading question very quickly. But I may not understand it. So for me to understand, I read very slowly. And thank you very much for asking questions. And I'll be happy to answer. And once again, I want to end this session with our, what do you call it, Metta benediction. That is not a joke. Uh, Even though I use these technical terms used by other religions, what we are we are doing is something very serious. We want to continue our practice and want to wish all those who are suffering from this virus be free from that suffering. And we also know many people, not only those who are suffering directly from this virus, but their friends and relatives, and especially those who lost their relatives and friends, they grieve, they sorrow, lament, and they have pain. May they all be free from that pain, grief, and suffering. And there are many people who are trying to help them, help those who are suffering from this virus, like doctors, nurses, hospital staff, and others who are supporting financially and spiritually. And there are some others who are in a position, in the leadership position. Some are very good, fortunate, others are unfortunate to make right decisions. We, we want them to be wise, have patience, understanding, compassion to make right decisions. And with all this, we want to wish all of them come to normal, regular daily life and live long in very good health and finally attain liberation from samsaric suffering. Thank you for coming and participating. You are doing it not for yourself, you are doing it for the world, for all living beings. There are maybe more than 7 worlds, 7 billion worlds, or more than 8 billion worlds. We call the world all these beings, and we are working for them, wishing them to be peaceful and happy. This is how we wish the world to be peaceful and happy. Thank you.